Taxes remain at the center of the debt ceiling debate. Joining us now with more on this battle, Democratic Senator Shaheen of New Hampshire. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
I grew up in Nashua.
Ah, so you're a native.
I am a native, yeah, absolutely. Live free or die state. Tell us, how do you think the meeting with President Obama is going to go, and are we going to get anywhere on this debate?
Well, I think we've got to get someplace on this debate, because failing to raise the debt ceiling would be catastrophic, not just for financial markets, for business in this country, but also for middle-class families across the country who would pay more for their mortgage payments, for their car payments. It is not acceptable. So what we need is to get everybody to come to the table, willing to look at all aspects of the budget and to look at revenues.
We've had a lot of debates here about whether or not the financial markets really are as terrified as a lot of folks suggest. I mean, interest rates haven't gone up at all. If anything, they've gone down. I mean, do you really buy that there would be financial chaos?
Well, when you talk to Warren Buffett tomorrow, ask him what he thinks, because he said it would be the most asinine act Congress ever did if we failed to raise the debt ceiling. So I think we should not even be talking about this or risking any possibility. We need to do everything we can to make sure this country's competitive, to make sure that we can grow, and certainly addressing the debt and the deficits have to be part of that. You know, but we've got to look at all aspects of the budget. We've got to look at discretionary spending, we've got to look at defense, at mandatory spending, and we have to look at revenues.
Okay, revenues, we'll talk about that in a second, but what do you make of President Bill Clinton's suggestion that you lower the corporate tax rate, because he says it's uncompetitive, and eliminate loopholes? Is that something you would go for?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the things we ought to be looking at. The President's Deficit Commission report suggested that that would make us more competitive, that we lower our corporate tax rate so we're very competitive, and that we eliminate the loopholes like more deductions for yachts and for racehorses. I mean, those are the kinds of things that we should be eliminating. That ought to be easy to do.
Where do you think it goes from here?
Well, I hope everybody will come back to the table. You know, a negotiation involves not just one side giving up something, but both sides giving up something. When I was governor and I worked with the legislature, that's what we did. Nobody ever got everything they wanted. And everybody who's looked at this challenge says that in order to solve it, we've got to deal with everything. We've got to have everything on the table to look at. And that means taxes and revenues.
When you say revenues, are you satisfied with closing loopholes? Is that a way to thread this needle? To say, okay, so it's not officially a tax raise and helps the Republicans deal with the extreme right wing? Is that good enough for you?
Well, I think tax reform is an important piece of that, and that means looking at those tax expenditures or tax loopholes. You know, right now we're spending as much in those tax loopholes as we're taking in revenue in a year.
But is that enough for you, or do you think that taxes have to be raised?
Well, I think starting with those tax expenditures is a great place to start. And one of the things that the President's Deficit Reduction Commission did was to start with those and look at other places where we could make changes that make this country more competitive. And that should be one of our goals in looking at this puzzle, that we make sure we address the debt and the deficit in ways that make us more competitive.
Obviously, a lot of the problems, Senator, sort of predate your tenure in the Senate, but I wonder if you think creating Erskine Bowles, a Simpson commission, and then sort of letting it languish hurts your argument, or not having passed a budget in a couple of years hurts the argument from your side of the aisle?
Well, listen, I've been working on some of the recommendations that were in the Simpson-Bowles Commission report. I have legislation with Senator Coburn that would address the growth in budgets across the federal government for vehicles. Our bill would require a 20% reduction in vehicle budgets, something that was recommended in the President's Fiscal Commission report. So I think we have been trying to address what's in the report, and we need to continue to do that. But in order to do that, we've got to have everybody at the table, and we've got to be willing to put everything on the table. So I'm willing to support cuts. I think the Democrats have been willing to support cuts, but the Republicans need to be willing to support looking at revenue.
All righty. Good. Senator, thank you so much.